All right. I want to just say a few words about advanced analysis. If you've watched all three of the videos in this and you went through and researched them and looked into them, then you should have a pretty good Swiss Army knife to analyze any type of audio. And you should really be able to analyze any audio fairly well with what you have there. Some of the advanced analysis tools in your DAW, that some of them that, really when you've got your DAW open and you're looking through it, and you actually go into the manual and look at the analysis tools that are available, most of them should be fairly self-explanatory depending on what kind of DAW you're working on and what kind of analysis that you can do. And I suggest you investigate them thoroughly. Even something really simple like, this here for trying to detect transients, and the level of the threshold so that you're looking at, just transient detection. I mean, even simple tools like that can be invaluable sometimes for doing different types of work, time stretching and putting in silence and all kinds of things. But basically, you need to actually go into your DAW at this point once you've gone through those other analysis tools and really see what all that else it might offer to analyze audio and see what of those other analysis tools are in your studio and the different aspects of them. One reason that I'm not getting really in depth into that is because your DAW may do it differently. Some of them do along the same lines of analysis, but for me to go into Studio One and go into all that detail when you're in some other DAW maybe, or you're using some other different type of analysis software, I mean, I don't know, you might go out and buy RX5 or 7 or something like that, and for me to address that from here would not do you a lot of good. You'd want to know what that analysis tool will all do. But when you're dealing with advanced audio analysis, if you have the tools and you understand the tools well that I've put out there so far, you should be able to analyze most audio fairly well without having to buy some really expensive audio analysis software. Some of it can be really cool. There are some expensive softwares out there that can do some really cool stuff. Whether or not you're going to need that or not is debatable. And once you've mastered those basics and you really understand the analysis with the tools that have been laid out so far, and you've got a really good understanding of them, that, whether or not you need those, at that point you should address whether or not you need those analysis tools and what else they're going to do that you may need them for. And that's, that's an obvious thing that doesn't sound really obvious when you're a beginner or intermediate individual who, thinks you need to go out and spend, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 on some piece of software to analyze audio so that your stuff sounds okay. That, the reality of it is that if you've got the professional grade DAW and you've spent the money on that, you understand the tools that I've showed you so far. You understand the tools that are just in your DAW, and you've got the basic interface and the basic microphone and the basic equipment that you need along those lines, and some kind of, MIDI controller, that you'll probably find that, with the understanding of those tools and understanding the audio that well with what you have right there, that the chances are that, if you're taking it to the next level, it should be because you need it. Because I know that with Audacity and a $99 interface and all the free plugins you can get from Sonic Visualizer and free plugins on the internet, that you can probably make a pretty dang good production with that. I mean, I'm just about sure of it. I know you can. So don't get wrapped up into super heavy analysis and expensive software for analysis, because some of it you're just not going to need. And it's great stuff. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not. And if you can afford it, that's great. But the chances are, if you understand everything else from this channel up to this point, that you needing it isn't really likely, unless you're just really into analysis of understanding something, or you're doing some extreme sound sculpting, or production, that you're going to really need that for some specific use of what you're working on, which can vary. It's debatable whether or not you would need it. Me myself, I'd take all of it. I mean, if somebody walked in the door and said, "Here, dude, here's all the software you want about analysis," I'd take all of it. It would be packed up behind us here all the way to the ceiling. I mean, you can guarantee that. I love that stuff. I think it's just so cool, and I love experimenting around with it and seeing what it can do. And every now and then you trip across some new thing. You go, "Wow, now that's cool," but you can get lost in that also and start forgetting your basics to where that's what you need, and that other stuff, you don't really need that. So really, work on the basics first, and extreme analysis for extreme situations. You'll find that a lot of times that you just won't need that kind of analysis, except for when you're having issues. And it comes down to when you're having issues and during the process to avoid issues, and or when you're going through and you have issues, to go ahead and pinpoint where the issue might be with those analysis tools. And those are your basics, and you've got those basic tools covered. And with you understanding all the things we've talked about so far, that you've got a pretty good tool belt to really analyze what's happening if you are having issues or during the process. So I'm not going to get really in depth there. That's about as far as I wanted to go with that. And so when you start getting into some more expensive analysis tools, that really be sure of why you're buying it, what you need it for. Can you get it done without it? Do you need it, or is it just something you can afford that may do something that, be sure that you need it before you go buying a bunch of software that you don't need. If you can afford it, great. But, with those basic tools, you can probably get done what you're wanting to do. So that's about as much as I wanted to say about that. I may in some other videos address some, more advanced analysis tools. But basically, I'm not going to right now, because if you've watched all the videos on this channel and you understand everything you were looking at all the way up to this point, that you'll probably find the tools that you do have or you have access to at this point, that you're probably pretty good to go. I mean, you've got probably what you need to do some serious production. If you've got a professional grade DAW, that you probably can produce pretty well. And even if you took all the information and applied it in Audacity, with a cheap interface and a cheap microphone, that if you understood those concepts, that you can probably produce some fairly decent music. That if you have any fine issues or some detailed issues for mastering, that you might have to send your album off to a mastering engineer to get a really, some final brush up work on it that you just don't have the equipment to do. But if you do everything that you've learned on this channel so far well, that the chances, is that he probably not going to do a lot if he does much. Most of it probably would be just formatting issues, which we've already addressed. And if you formatting issues and getting things ready for formatting, or different types of dithering, or problems with truncation, or dealing with those issues because you're not able to deal with them in a free DAW as well as you might be able to. But other than that, with all those tools, your analysis tool belt should be fairly full, and you should really be able to analyze audio well with the tools that you have there. And if you've taken the time to watch all these videos and understand everything that's there, and you've got a hold of those tools, and understand what they do, and understand how you're getting things done, that you'll find that a whole lot of those tools are to fix things with problems that you are having because you didn't do what you should have done in the process correctly the first time, or you're trying to fix somebody else's stuff, or things like that. And so those tools can be really geared for those kind of issues. or samples you get that you want to work on. And if you used all those tools we talked about and the techniques and understand, how to analyze and how to maybe fix those issues of what's happening with any of them, that the chances are that you can get it done in your DAW and without having to buy all those kind of things. So I hope that kind of addressed that, and I apologize if you didn't get to see a video here about the new RX7 analysis software, but it's like, it's really doubtful you're going to need that. If you can afford it, great, and if you can find that you do need it, great. But if you've used all those tools I've showed you and you've watched all these videos and understand everything that's been shown you, that the chances are that you're not going to really need it except for a very specific need that is going to probably arise not from any fault of your own. It's going to be somebody else's problem that you're maybe trying to work on or fix. And when they're willing to pay you for it, then buy it, and if it's your stuff, then you need to go back some steps in your process, and you can probably fix it before you need that, advanced analysis software, or a tool to repair something, before you ever came to the point to where you needed it. So I hope that addressed that fairly well. And I hope that it didn't blow your bubble, that you didn't get to see some cool analysis software that costs $3,000 that you can't afford. So, hopefully that'll actually put a smile on your face, because some of the tools that I've showed you are really great. And some of the things that I've showed you so far, if you've got those understandings, that you'll find that some of those tools are really cool, but those tools are to fix other people's crap that didn't do the shit correctly the first time. And if you did the shit correctly, then your stuff you shouldn't need all that stuff to try to repair stuff that you've already done correctly, because you've done the processes correctly and you've analyzed everything as you went along with what you do have, so that you don't have a need for that kind of stuff. So I hope that was real basic, and I hope that I hope that put a smile on your face, that you kind of got what you need, and go with it. Work with what you have and see if you can do with what you think you're needing to do with what you have. And really, look at it that way. I do suggest a professional grade DAW when you can afford it. But, if you don't, that you'll find as you work with it that, that you can do, most of what you need to do with what you have. And with those other tools, you should be well on your way to any analysis issues that you may have with any kind of audio and what's happening in the audio. So I hope that was enlightening, and I hope that was simple and concise enough to where, and I certainly hope it set your mind at ease, so you don't think you need some $3,000 piece of software to analyze your audio. Some of those tools are great, and I suggest you keep up on them to see what they're doing. But a lot of those pieces of software are to fix problems that should have never happened to begin with. And the better you are at all the processes, that your analysis and using the analysis tools that you have as you go along, you're going to have a lot less need for any of those type of tools. So I hope that was informative and you enjoyed the video, and peace, hope, love.